Welcome back to Wall Again, where passion meets music, and today is a very special day. 50 years ago today, possibly one of the best double albums of all time was released. Physical Graffiti from Led Zeppelin. So to commemorate this occasion, we have Eric back again, and a new guest this time. Marcus is joining us. How you doing, lads?
How's it going?
All
What's
set.
the Robert?
All good now, all good. So yeah, look, great to have you on, Marcus.
Thank you very much.
We're interested to see what your opinion on this album is now. You being a huge
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin fan as well.
Oh, no pressure. Thanks very much.
Yeah, yeah. There's no pressure on this, man. It's all just a nice casual chat, isn't that right, Eric?
That's it, man. Just kick back and talk the music, you know.
That's it. So released in 1975. And this was actually, I was reading earlier, the first album that was released through their own label. So they had finished their 5 album requirement with Atlantic Records, and this was their sixth album, and this was the first one under the Swan Song label. So they had a bit more, I suppose, artistic direction, although Led Zeppelin were never really curbed when it came to artistic direction anyway.
Yeah, it's you can definitely hear like they always had free reign to do what they wanted, but this album is kind of like we have our own label, we're gonna do what we want. We've got all this material, let's make it a double album because we've all this material and why not?
Yeah, for sure. I actually did a ranking of double albums a couple of weeks back, and this was sitting pretty at number one there. And there was tough competition because we had the White Album from the Beatles, and obviously Pink Floyd's The Wall and Smashing Pumpkins. So there was plenty of competition in there. But yeah, I think it's an absolute classic, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great listen. It's a good album, I have to say. I told you before, Rob, I was really into the first four albums. Um, I never really kind of gave this the love, and I was listening to it a few times there. I was on my holidays recently, and I was chilling out listening to it, and yeah, it's a great album. It's a really good album.
Yeah,
That's
and right from the start, I'll say something for me that's controversial. I don't like double albums. I'm not a fan of them. I
Yeah,
I I think an awful lot of them are bloated. I suppose for the time when I was growing up, the biggest ones was Use Your Illusion, and it was almost just like a waste of material. They're just kind of churning out material. And sometimes double albums could be like that, where it's just the sake of just trying to fill the
yeah,
space.
yeah,
What I think what's slightly different with this one is there was a reason beyond having the material as to why they made the double album. So, and that's them having artistic freedom, and that was one of the major reasons why, because
yeah,
they were asked for the first, what would you say, the first side, if you're looking at it as a CD, they were them songs were too long for a single album, were too
yeah,
short for a double album, but they
yeah.
weren't prepared to change their ways, and you got to tip your hat to it. It's fair play to them.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. I was doing a little bit of research into the albums to figure out a bit more, and songs like in my dying day, like they're really really long songs, and that kind of caused the album to be more than the standard. Was around 44 minutes, 45 minutes on a record. So they had to go to a second album for the remaining material. I know we'll kind of get into all the songs and stuff like that, but for me, the strongest element of the whole album is the first disc or the first vinyl, and then the last side of the second side of the second EP. But yeah, I mean, let's get into some of the songs and what do you think?
well. Before we get into the songs, do you want to look at the artwork first, Eric? Do you have this one on vinyl?
I don't actually have it on vinyl, but I do know there is like a whole interactive thing where you can slide it up and the windows open and there's guest appearances and stuff.
Yeah.
Something that I don't know if you get that on the CD, but there's loads of guest characters. What's his name? The guy who assassinated JFK is one of them, isn't he?
I
Harvey,
didn't actually, I didn't know that much
Lee Harvey
detail
Oswald. Yeah, there's
about it.
loads of different famous people. I know Lee Harvey Oswald is in there.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
there's a few things that they do is like uh, they're I had the vinyl. I don't actually have it anymore, but the band are dressed in drag in some of the pictures,
Yeah, yeah,
and you can like flip the albums around, and as you say, different pictures are coming out the different windows,
yeah,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
So
a
this is a
fantastic album. Like the design of it and everything is just fantastic.
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Apparently, the design of the vinyl, the artwork delayed the release of the album by about 3 or 4 months, because they wanted the proper windows and different styles. They had the vision, you can see that on, for example, Led Zeppelin 3, like the interactive spinny disc. They wanted to do something like that again, and I think like I've seen it when you lift it out of the sleeve, the windows opening and all these characters. You can see they put a lot of thought process into that, so it's pretty cool. Like it's really cool.
definitely, yeah, it's typical Led Zeppelin. They're doing everything to the extreme. So like the
Yeah,
music is done to the extreme in terms of the length and the complexity of the music and the songs, but also the visual element. They wanted to push the boundaries in terms of what you were getting on a vinyl. So what I have is actually the remastered CD version. Now I think it's actually the second lot of remasters because it was remastered in the 1990s and it wasn't very good. And then Jimmy Page got a hold of it and he remastered them again for CD. And I have to say, like the remastering on this version is fantastic. Like it sounds absolutely brilliant. But on CD, obviously, we don't have the interactive sleeve, so it's just the standard cover with the letters of Physical Graffiti. So might be worth saying that that's actually a building in or two buildings in New York, and they're still standing today. Now, I was in New York last year, and I'm kind of kicking myself. I had a list of sites that I had to see, and of course the Dakota Building and the John Lennon Monument at Central Park was one of them.
yeah,
But I didn't have these buildings on my
yeah.
list, so kind of
I
kicking
heard
myself.
I heard there's a coffee shop now or something. They're called Physical Graffiti.
Oh right, okay,
Yeah, it's a little like cafe kind of tea shop or coffee shop or whatever
yeah.
in New York.
The
So
thing
they
is,
do celebrate its historical meaning and stuff with the music element.
yeah, like the other thing as well is like as you know, New York is so big, Manhattan's so big. Like to get anywhere, it takes time, because if you're walking,
Yeah,
you're dealing with the traffic, and then if you're getting the subway like that takes time as well, going on the different lines. But we actually went out to look at the building on the front of Friends. We went out to have a look at that one, and
Central
like
Park.
it's the coffee shop, but that's actually the building that the apartment was meant to be in is above the
Yeah,
coffee shop. That was the whole thing.
yeah.
Even though it was all recorded in Los Angeles, the outside was New York. So we went down to that myself and Sarah, and yeah, like it's just a building, like it's just a building on the street, and
Yeah.
there was a few people across the road taking pictures, and we were there taking pictures, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, tick that
I believe
box.
it's out of
What's
the
next?
I believe it's out of the Rolling Stones. They filmed the music video there.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah, waiting on a friend. Yeah, so that's
Right.
another little bit of music history that you probably would have made it really nice to have seen the building.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, it would have been great to see it. I look,
Reaching to return, Rob.
I'll get back again. I'll get back again. I've plenty of stuff. You're never finished seeing stuff in New York, that's for sure.
No, no, never,
Oh, yeah.
never.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then when you open up the inside, you can see the people's faces there. But to be fair, it's very small. So I think yeah, vinyl is definitely better in terms of visual on this one. So
Yeah.
But I
let's
think
dive.
if you were to look at the album at its time, it buying vinyl was such a thing. It was what everybody was doing at the time. So as a package, it was
Yeah,
way different to anybody else. Like
Yeah.
they were offering their fans or their customers that were buying these things or whatever so much more than just a flat out double album. And it was
Yeah.
because I used to be all about buying vinyls when I was much younger, and part of the joy was reading the vinyl. It was just getting onto the back of it and trying to find out who was the musicians on it, who was the producer, and anything extra was just joy. It was just wonderful to see, and I think that album just really considered the product
Yeah.
itself as well.
The
yeah,
music pops off the sleeve.
Yeah,
It's interactive. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Me and Eric actually talk a lot about that because, like obviously there was no internet back then, and
no,
the only information you had on bands was from the vinyl or the CD later. And then, if you were lucky enough to have any of the music channels, MTV2 or whatever it was called at the day, or maybe classic rock or Kerrang magazines, but like it's not like now where we have information saturation and you can find it about all these bands. And particularly Led Zeppelin were a very sort of they didn't do a lot of interviews when they were a band. So
Yeah.
there's very, very little out there about them, anyway.
Well, for me, the way I found out about any bands, I'll go to the music stores, check out the albums, check out a lot of the albums, a lot of the rock albums would actually tell you who the musicians were on the back.
Yeah,
And then you see who the producer were. And I learned an awful lot about musicians and producers through that, and seeing like this particular guitarist is on this album and that producer done with all these different. And I learned so much about outside the music itself. Now, I love that part of it, so that really ticked the box for me. But if that was how I found new music, that's how I found a new band. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have any idea who these people were, and because buying albums was it was very costly. You were always taking a punt on it, and
yeah,
because it was so costly, you were stuck with that for could possibly be a month. So you got to hope it's a good album that you're buying. And it was a great way of finding new music. It was so organic, the way of finding new music by following the musicianship or by following the producer, as opposed to following word of mouth or well, word of mouth was good, but say like a critic or something like that.
yeah,
You were creating the paths yourself, and it was a wonderful way of finding new music. It was at the back of an album.
I
yeah.
believe as well an Easter egg on this, and we'll get into the music. But one of the reviews that like Rolling Stone or someone like that wrote about this album was it was Led Zeppelin's Achilles heel, and of course the next album, which is Presence, the title, the first track is Achilles heel. I think
Achilles
like,
last
everything
stand,
for
yeah,
these lads, yeah, these lads are well thought out. I mean they listen to critics and they're like, what do you mean Achilles heel? I'm gonna write a song about that.
yeah. I love music critics. I don't think music fans listen to music critics, to be honest.
Well,
Yeah,
certainly with Led Zeppelin, because it seems right from the start they just got panned all the time.
Yeah,
yeah.
People picked them apart, except
absolutely.
for the fans who were spending their money to go see them. So
They're more loved now than they were when they were out.
yeah, I think so.
That's
Yeah,
fact. Like, okay,
yeah.
should we dive into the music, guys? So starts off with custard pie.
Cause the back. David Young.
Chewing a piece of your custard pie. I love the way Robert Plant loves his good old innuendos before Freddie Mercury was doing it.
Oh yeah, filthy lyrics.
Yeah,
But it's just a dessert, though, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what were you getting out of
No, that's
it?
what I'm talking about. And then it goes on to the Rover. Now the Rover, to me, we talked about these songs before, Eric, how they had like the hard rock Led Zepp 2 type songs, and they're sprinkled throughout every album. And to me,
Yeah,
the Rover is another one of these. It's got a great guitar riff and a great drum groove.
yeah, class, man. It reminds me of like the Sabbath sounds, like the early Sabbath sounds. Has that kind of like heavy riff and class
Yeah.
track.
Now
Like,
the chord structures are a lot more complex than you'd see on a Black Sabbath album, But
yeah,
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, definitely in terms of the production and the groove, and it's
yeah,
heavy guitar oriented. And the sonics in this song are very good as well. I was listening to it on the headphones there the other day, and like it felt like something was missing from the left side. So I was like, what's going on here? This is very odd production. Like the right is stacked with guitars, and the left was a little bit lacking. And then I found out when I got to the chorus, there's this melody. It's like a counterpoint to Robert Plant's vocals, and it's done in like a lead guitar, and it's all through the left side
yeah,
of the cans. So that's the reason why Jimmy Page, obviously a fantastic producer as well as a great songwriter and guitar player, and
yeah,
he had that foresight to kind of plan out the song and pan stuff in a certain way, leaving spaces for melodies and other parts in the song to push forward, which is again another brilliant thing about Led Zeppelin.
yeah, exactly, man. They used on this album in particular, you can hear they're really experimental. Like they're using like phasers and like all different types of keyboards and percussion. It's pretty cool. I believe they went back to record this album where they done Zep 4, didn't they? But they didn't have the mobile studio. They couldn't capture that, same vibe they got from Zeppelin 4. Um
Yeah, it
So
was Headley Grange. They went back to that
yeah,
old stately
yeah,
home, yeah, to record the new tracks for this one. But there was a lot of stuff left from Led Zeppelin 3 and Houses of the Holy that ended up being on this.
yeah.
So the Rover there, I'm just reading on the liner notes, that was actually recorded in 1972.
Hmm.
So that's one that was already recorded and it was obviously mixed and mastered to suit the album, but it was one they had on the shelf. And I think, as you guys were saying earlier, that's the reason why they went with the double album. They had so much material.
That's material.
Well, certainly if you look at the first album, I think it's if that in itself was released, it rivals Led Zeppelin 4. I think it's so strong. There isn't a weak song there at all. Now they mightn't all be Stonewall classics, but there isn't one weak song in that first vinyl. It's so powerful,
Yeah,
and it could be a master in itself. I think this is where we fall into the thing of double albums. You start to pull things apart because the albums can be so vast that it's very hard to have a full double album of classics. That you start pulling at the good songs as well because oh yeah, but on the second vinyl they start dropping away. And whereas okay, well then just look at the first vinyl. It is so strong. It's so
mm,
it's brilliant. There isn't a weak point in it. And I love a long winding track. I have no problems with like an 10 minute track, no problem at all. But they had the chops to do it.
yeah,
They were the musicians that were well capable of doing it. And to say to see that live in real time would have been just fantastic.
yeah.
Pulling out those big hits,
Yeah,
those big songs.
Absolutely. Like, and that's like you're talking about long songs. The next one is 11 minutes and 4 seconds long. In
Yeah,
My Time of Dying, Jimmy Page on the slide guitar,
yeah,
putting it up to Dwayne Allman and Joe Walsh and any of the rest of them. He
yeah.
absolutely kills it on this. And what I love about this is he's playing slide guitar, but he's not just playing it on like one string clean, which is what a lot of the Eagles stuff would have been like. He's got it dirty, like he's got a lot of grit in that sound, and he's playing multiple strings. So I think they used to play a Dan Electro guitar, so it was tuned to open tuning. So it meant he could basically had a lot more freedom to experiment and make that sound a lot heavier because even though it's a slide guitar led song, and it's like a bluesy, it's kind of Southern American roots in black music type song, it's very heavy as well. And I think a lot of that comes
Yeah.
from John Bonham's drums on this one.
And I
yeah,
think as well for a blues track, the reason why I think this stands out as a blues track is I find this song really brings you on a journey.
Yeah,
It's from the start right into when it's really full on, right in the center, and then dropping off. It's a journey song. It's as
yeah,
much a journey song I feel as Stairway to Heaven because it brings you on such big highs and then brings you back down to the lows, but in a blues format, in a standard blues format. And a lot of blues songs, I'm a big fan of blues, but a lot of blues songs can be very similar, and they could, or the only thing different is the actual musicians that are playing it. I think this is a blues song that's slightly different in that it brings you on a journey,
yeah,
and they really created a story with this song, musically as well as well, not so much lyrically because I don't rate Robert Plant as the greatest lyric guy. He was very good at stealing lyrics, but
yeah.
music wise, they really bring you on a journey with this song.
Yeah, there's a
yeah.
lot of lyrics they did borrow from, the blues, the blues artists of America. They're
Which
scattered
is
all throughout Led Zeppelin's career.
which is really impressive at the time because, as you said, Rob, there's no internet, there's no Spotify for them to jump into these tracks. They had to physically go and find these songs, and then like pick bits out of it, going, "Oh, I love that line. Oh, I must remember that line. Write that down and find a place to put." Like, I get it that they're stealing, and it's a big thing with Led Zeppelin about the being thrown at them that they're stealing, but every band out there is borrowing off another band. I get it if they're taking so much that people have to get acknowledgement for what's been taken, but if it's only little segments, every band does this. Every band takes a little nugget from other bands, and they had to like go into it like libraries and try and dig out these little bits and pieces and create songs around them and stuff. So they were real music fans in order to do that. There's no Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they had a massive wealth of musical knowledge from, growing up and physically listening to these albums and these records and this type of
Yeah,
music. Like, they had all that in the bank, and then they were just taking it a step further. But again, like, there's no band sounds like Led Zeppelin before or even now. Like, and like with that song in My Time of Dying, like, there's nothing like that. Like Black Sabbath or Deep Purple, Free. There's none of them bands that are making music like that. Like, it's
yeah,
totally off the wall, but amazing at the same time.
yeah, yeah.
So that's the first side of the first vinyl, and then we go on to the second side of the first vinyl, and it's Houses of the Holy. And this is the joke we laugh at, Eric. It's like, why did they put that on Physical Graffiti?
Yeah, it's a great song, great track.
Yeah,
I think they should have put it on Houses of the Holy. I think it would have made the album a little better. We done the review of the album, and I was a bit iffy about that album. I feel better about this album, but like this little songs like that, that they had in there, they had recorded years ago. They could have put it on, Houses of the Holy or whatever. But it's Led Zeppelin.
it's a great track. Absolutely drenched in chorus, Marcus, as you'll know as a fellow guitar player.
Yeah, yeah,
Drenched in chorus, yeah. Which is, look, it is
yeah,
what it is. It's at that time amazing, like,
yeah. But for some of these people as well, like these musicians, some of these effects, were whilst they were accessible in the studio, they were become accessible on the stage as well. So
Yeah,
they were looking for ways to try and use it not just as a studio instrument, a studio tool, but now that I have it on stage, I'm learning how to use it in different ways. There's a lot of effects in this time, 60s and 70s, that was being opened up to guitarists, and they're still really trying to master these effects.
yeah,
Some a bit
experimenting.
overboard, more overboard than others, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It doesn't take from the track. If anything, I think it adds to the track because, as you say, it was at that point in time where this was all coming into play and they were experimenting. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. And then it goes
but
into
if you
sorry,
also if you wanted to look at it from a cold point of view, if anybody else was to do that at that time, they would have been, oh, you're copying Led Zeppelin. It's like
yeah,
they put a stamp on that and going like, oh, that's our thing now. Yeah, anybody else that uses chorus the way we do, well, you're going to be classed as copying Led Zeppelin. I think an awful lot of what they done at the time was very well thought of.
oh
They're
yeah, yeah,
quite good businessmen, and I do think they knew the product that they had and they knew how to use it.
yeah. Look, I think it's art, and they're throwing
Yeah,
stuff at a wall, and Jimmy Page is a fantastic artist. Like, he's a
yeah,
fantastic architect, to create all these sounds. And like, there's no guitar player in the world sounds like Jimmy Page. And even for that time, Jeff Beck or Eric Clapton, none of them sounded like Jimmy Page. He was on his own in terms of the sounds he could produce. Um, so just I suppose that leads on to the next one. It's John Paul Jones' best impression of Stevie Wonder, Trampled Under Foot.
Class song. I love the song actually. You can really hear where like them crooked vultures got their sound many years later. You can hear
Yeah,
all the elements. You can really hear all those elements. But this is a fantastic track. I love it. It's just a deadly riff. It's a deadly key piece of music that they're playing. It's classes.
do you know
yeah.
what
It's almost
instrument he's playing? Marcus, is it clav? Is it?
the Mellotron, is it, or something like that? I actually can't remember.
What am I saying? This? No, no, it might be as a clavinet, maybe.
Maybe
Don't
I'm
know.
not really sure, but he's a very talented man. Like
Oh, brilliant.
he really he could come at things with many different instruments.
Yeah,
I think Jimmy Page could be Jimmy Page because of people around him, and John Paul Jones is a perfect example of that because he could fill in so much space and like in one. I actually think is it this song? I'm not really sure, but there's a song that they do off this album live where John Paul Jones has to play a three-necked guitar to play all the parts. There's a mandolin on it, there's the bass on it, and I can't remember what the third instrument is. But that's the role that he was taking in order for Jimmy Page to have the space to be Jimmy Page.
yeah.
So he took an awful lot on and was very capable musician.
Apparently he was instrumental in the arrangements. in terms of that verse should be longer and this chorus should come in half of
Yeah.
them, all that type of thing. Um, Apparently he was instrumental in keeping Jimmy, on the straight and narrow, because I'd say Jimmy had wacky ideas and, you can't put like, maybe you could put a 20-minute song on a vinyl, but like if it's the same thing over and over again, someone needs to say, hang on, Jimmy, calm down. You know?
Yeah, but I kind of get the impression because of the work that the likes of Jimmy and John Paul Jones done in studio work.
Yeah.
I've got the impression that John Paul Jones is a very intelligent musician.
Oh
He,
yeah.
he really knows his not just how to play, but the understanding the theory of music. So yeah, I've always
Yeah.
had that impression, but maybe it's because he has that quiet school teacher look about him. I don't know, but he always comes across as being very, very intelligent when it comes to the theory of music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his father was a musician as well, wasn't he? So he
Yeah.
was like
Yes.
always involved with music from a very young age.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's their secret weapon. No doubt about
I
it.
very much think so. Very
Yeah.
much. Yeah, and he, if you look at the limelight and I'd say ego battles and stuff like that, he doesn't seem to take up any space.
Yeah.
Like he's the perfect secret weapon because he doesn't take up any limelight, any space. He's letting those that want to have that and let have the big egos. He lets them have that, and he has his own little thing going on in the background.
Yeah.
Perfect that you to have that in your band.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then finishes off side B of the first vinyl is Kashmir.
Cashmere, brilliant song,
What,
epic.
what can we say about this?
Yeah, just epic.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
So iconic.
one of their best, if not the best. It rivals any of their songs. It's an amazing tune.
Yeah. So Jimmy
Um,
Page wrote all the music for this. Um, and
yeah,
John Paul Jones doesn't have a writing credit on this, so it's all Jimmy. All the orchestrations, that's all him. Of course, that guitar riff, it's in a detuned tuning on the guitar. Apparently he was doing a lot of stuff with like Irish traditional folk Irish tunings and stuff like that, and he was taking massive influence from Eastern music as well, which like the Beatles and Rolling Stones and the Who, a lot of bands were taking sort of Eastern learnings
Yeah,
well,
and bringing the culture into the music as well.
there's a couple of things that, when you say what's his name, John Paul Jones didn't have anything to do with the writing of the song
Yeah.
or the arrangement. It was him that brought in the musicians. They're Pakistani musicians. He brought them in to
Oh,
create
really?
that
Okay.
sound. Yeah, that was John Paul Jones that brought that in, them in,
yeah,
and the likes of what Robert Plant is doing. That's all coming from Morocco and his
Okay.
experiences in Morocco, and the singing and playing musical styles of Morocco, and you can hear it in the sort of wailing that John or Robert Plant does. That
Yeah.
if you were just to take that out on its own, that fits pretty much perfectly in the Moroccan scene, even to today. But also in the song, like I don't know if it's on the CD, but definitely going back to the albums and stuff. John Bonham has top writing credit on this.
He has a writing credit. Yeah, he certainly
No, but
does.
he has top writing credit on it.
So,
And the
well,
reason why,
yeah, okay.
there's a reason why. There's about two or three songs on this album where John Bonham has top writing credit, and it's because he's the one that built the structure of the song.
Is that a fact?
That's a
yeah.
fact. Yeah,
Wow.
There's a polyrhythm going on through the whole song. So like
Yeah.
one
yeah,
of it's 4/4-B, and the band, they're all at different timing signatures, but they all meet at the end of the
yeah,
bar.
yeah. The band is on 3/4 and he's on 4/4, and the band
Yeah,
meet on the 12th, and it's the
yeah,
only time
yeah,
they meet is on the 12th,
Yeah.
and that was all John Bonham. John Bonham is what is the glue that holds the whole song together.
Brilliant.
And he does that. I can't remember the other. There's definitely one, maybe two other songs in the album, and he gets top billing on the writing for that very reason. It's acknowledged by them that that's the reason why he got top billing. Now he didn't come up with the melody and all that, but
Yeah.
he built what was a patchwork of songs,
Brilliant.
patchwork of melody and tunes. He built it into the song that is Kashmir.
That's
You know,
fantastic. I didn't
and
I
I,
didn't actually know that. That's
and I
brilliant.
think it's very honourable that, like, I no disrespect to drummers because I know Eric is a drummer. But it's very easy to just go, well, like I come up with the melody and I come up with the words, well then like that's it. But here's a perfect example of where a drummer created the song from all the bits of melodies and all the bits, all the words and stuff. None of that would have probably fitted as well if it wasn't for the drummer. And that's
Yeah,
another example of where there's more than just the guy with the melody who writes the song. Sometimes it's the band and
yeah.
that acknowledgement needs to be made,
Yeah, yeah,
This,
it's a classroom. That's the first half of the album right there. Very,
yeah.
very strong. Nearly every song there, bangers,
Yeah.
All
class songs.
perfect. It's all
Yeah,
perfect up to this point. Then we go
Well, on the
into
greatest, sorry, just to say, on the greatest hits, I'd be hard pressed to leave any one of them out.
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
quite simply. Yeah.
And then we go into the second final. So it starts off with In the Light, 8 minutes 44 seconds. And John Paul Jones gets a credit on this one, but John Bonham doesn't. So yeah, I love this track. It's absolutely brilliant. It really builds. It brings you up, takes you to a place, and then it comes in. There's fantastic keyboard work on this by John Paul Jones.
Very
It's
prog, isn't
phenomenal.
it? Yeah, I think it's very prog. It is.
Yeah,
Definitely hearing like elements of progressive rock, and it's almost like it reminds me of a Pink Floyd song, the way the keys are structured, and or the
yeah.
doors, even like it's very keyboard, it's very keys heavy, and I'd imagine John Paul Jones had a massive part in writing this song. It's a
Yeah,
really good
And
song.
but when you look at what's going on around them at the time, and so many strong bands at the time, they're definitely picking up from other bands that like you say, Pink Floyd and stuff like that. So not all their songs are bang solid Led Zeppelin songs. They all have influences from other bands around them. Their peers that they would be meeting on the road and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So yeah, very
the
much
Who
so.
they're like established with the Who an awful lot. They seem to have a lot of kind of, well, I want to say competition, but they done a lot of what the Who done. Even with the double
Yeah.
album releases and stuff, like the Who had released like Tommy or something around around the same time.
I don't know the timeline of they have a couple of double albums at
yeah.
the Who,
Quadrophenia as well.
but
Quadrophenia.
like they always want bands competing against each other, like Oasis and Blur. Like there's always something if they can create some sort of a rivalry. Like it
Dare I say Nirvana and Pearl Jam?
yeah, I really don't think they're two totally different roads, but I can
Oh, but
understand where you're coming
they
from.
were.
Yeah.
I don't. You probably remember at the time as well, Marcus. But I remember Nirvana Pearl Jam, where it was pretty much the Blur v Oasis, just a little bit earlier.
Yeah, no, I
It
do remember
was.
at the time, but I also kind of went like, are you trying to tell me because I like Pearl Jam that I'm not allowed to like Nirvana's? Never mind, like get over yourself, So
Oh,
it's
but it
like,
was just. It was the
yeah,
magazines love to.
yeah.
The,
Oh, they loved, yeah, yeah. Even like the Beatles and Rolling Stones, and these are guys are hanging out with each other and stuff like that.
yeah.
It's like
Well,
it's
I
so
don't think whatever about the other comparisons. There's no comparison between the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. So we'll leave that
no,
there.
but yeah, but I mean in terms of like trying to split the fans, trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
this is your gang and this is your gang, and it's
Oh
like
yeah. They're
no.
always yeah. No, they're always trying to do that. We'll keep going here. So Bon Your, which is a kind of an acoustic little number. I think it was a
Straight out of Led
leftover from
Zeppelin 3.
Led Zeppelin 3, yeah. And then Down by the Seaside, which is it's okay. Like it's not a bad track. If it wasn't any other album, we'd probably be saying it was a very good song. But because it's in with so many other great songs, it probably doesn't shine as bright.
Yeah, I agree, and I kind of said that at the very start of this. I was like, I think it's a fantastic album, but this side of like, there's a few good songs, but there's a bit of a dip here, in the song quality. You can see that they're like, right, we've got too much material for a single album, but we need to patch together a double album, and they're pulling in bits and bobs that they recorded over the years, and some of these songs here, they're not my favorite on the album. I might love them in a couple, now, another listen or two, but I find they're just not as strong as the first side of the album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still don't
I
skip
think it's
this one though.
no, and I think I'm I'm getting some. I know I'm getting songs mixed up in my head, but I think this is the one I class as the Eagles song. It's
It's
one of
yeah,
them. Yeah,
it,
it
it
reminds me of the Eagles.
peaceful, easy feeling, or it's got that kind of vibe. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And then the next song, song number 4 on the second disc on CD anyway, is 10 Years Gone. So this song is basically an orchestra of guitars. So I love it. It's brilliant. Jimmy Page just throws everything at this song, and he's got everything layered up, and everything is in a perfect place. He's got riffs and licks coming in and coming out. The drums come in and out as well.
Yeah,
And I think the vocals in this by Robert Plant are amazing. I absolutely love this song. It's probably
yeah.
one of my
It
favorite Led Zeppelin songs.
it's a good song. It is a strong song. Even the lyrics, it's a romantic song compared to like Robert Plant's tongue in cheek kind of innuendo lyrics that he does. This is more romanticism. I think he's talking about maybe a love of his life or something in it. But it is a good song.
And do you have the year that song was recorded?
So that was
10 years.
actually 1974. So that was this session. It was recorded in Headley Grange as a part of the
Right.
Physical Graffiti
It's
writing session.
it's interesting that you say about Robert Plant and his singing and stuff like that. One of the big things about this album is one of the big criticisms about it is Robert Plant and Robert Plant singing. And certainly with some of the songs that were recorded, the newer songs that were recorded for this album, especially because on the second side or whatever, there's songs from back in Led Zeppelin 3 sections and so whatever, going back quite a few recording sessions back. And he had a big major operation on his throat before this album. In between this and House of the Holy, he had a major operation. And it changed his voice and it changed how he used his voice.
Yeah,
And um, he kind of gets criticized a lot, but he had to kind of alter how he sang. He was never going to be the 20 something that could just early 20s that could just belt out these. He really, really damaged his voice. And I think his
Was it
singing on
Black
this
Dog,
album is
wasn't it? Yeah,
fantastic because of that.
yeah. Songs like Black Dog, a really high register. He's
Yeah.
probably doing damage to his vocal cords a lot. You know.
yeah,
Yeah, and the whole thing of like on the road constantly. That's what Led Zeppelin are known for. They're constantly on the road, but they're also constantly partying. So he is really pulling putting an awful lot of work on his vocal box, and had
yeah,
to get an operation. He's a different singer, and
Yeah.
I still think he's a fantastic singer on this album. But he gets criticized for it.
yeah.
What
I
else was
don't
he to do?
I don't see anything wrong with his performance on this album, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So the next song is number 5 on CD anyway, and it's what I consider probably to be Led Zeppelin's happiest song, Night Flight.
Yeah, I don't have much of an opinion about this song. It's a real meh song for me on the album. Not a massive fan of this
Yeah,
one.
yeah. This is a classic example of um, how do I compare this to the first album, to the first vinyl? It's and some of these songs on their own would be great, but they're probably more outtakes or B-side type albums that you get nowadays. It's probably more that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
filler.
I think there's still a lot in this song that I enjoy. It is different, but I find in a double album, if it's all the same, you're gonna get bored, So sometimes you need something different to shake it up, keep your interest. And as I've gotten older, I'm more appreciative of different styles of music. So like certainly I've no issue with this song. Like I was listening to the album the last few days, prepping for this, and I wasn't skipping any tracks. So, just enjoying it all, taking it as it is. But I do
No,
get what you're saying.
that's true. Yeah, like I get it. Not it's a good sign you're not skipping tracks, but
Mm.
if you had to skip a track, it would be some of these ones. But there's definitely something in them. Like there's still the same songwriters are there, the same ability is there,
Yeah,
but not everything's going to be 10 out of 10. No bands can do that. So
Yeah.
yeah. And then we go on to song number 6, the Wonton song, which is back again to you've got the metal horns up there, Eric. Like we're back into a groove here.
Love
Um,
this. Yeah, this is for me one of the standout tracks on the album as well.
yeah,
Like it reminds me of the Immigrant Song. John Bonham is just on top form here. Like it's just the groove is just class. Um, really, really good song. I love it.
we were talking the other day, Marcus. We were talking about space in songs, Queens of the Stone
yeah,
Age. The
yes,
space in this song is
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, and yeah. To get over the fear when you're playing in the band, to get over the fear of silence, it's a wonderful. It's just It can do amazing things to a song. And we experienced when we saw Queens of the Stone Age. I came away from that going, seeing a fantastic rock band with great songs. And the thing I was talking about was the moment that they weren't playing.
Yeah,
It was their use of
Yeah.
space was just fantastic. And it just made the songs. And this is an example of it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. Brilliant. And then we go on to song number 7, Boogie with Stew. So, Marcus, I think you have a backstory on this one for us.
When I told you originally, I got it slightly wrong, but it's one from I think 1970 or 1971 or something like that, where they were just jamming with Ian Stewart, the keyboard player from Rolling Stones, who Keith Richards says it's actually his band, and they done it. It's kind of based on a Richie Valens song. So what they done was they put his mother in as a writing credit. So any royalties that came off that song would go straight to Richie Valens' mother.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Very good. Very good.
yeah,
I didn't know that backstory. Like you were telling me this the other day, and I didn't know that backstory, and I was surprised to hear it. It again. Now this is an okay song. You know, it's fine. It's good for what it is, but definitely a
yeah.
different style to everything else on the album.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
it's
definitely has.
definitely a live jam. It's a live
It
jam. The lads
has.
walk in a circle jamming this one. You can really hear
Yeah,
that.
it has Ian Stewart written all over it though. It's. I feel it's more of a his song than it is a Led Zeppelin song because he was sort of a boogie woogie type player as well, you know, and
Yeah,
real rock and roll and stuff like that. So it definitely is influenced by Ian Stewart as well.
for sure. I went to see Joe Bonamassa play in Vicar Street in 2016, I believe it was. And he was doing a tribute to, it was called the British Blues Explosion. So he was doing a tribute to Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page. And
Yeah.
as you can imagine, you know, he had to select very carefully what Led Zeppelin songs he was playing because his vocal
Mm.
range isn't anywhere near Robert Plant. And he picked this song as one of the songs and did a
Wow.
fantastic job of it, to be fair. But again, it's like you're representing Jimmy Page, but you're playing this song. Didn't really, you know, go down
Also,
too well.
it's a little bit of a deep cut, you know. I wouldn't say many
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin fans would know it, you know. So
Well, there was a lot of people not really getting what song it was. But from Jeff Beck, he was playing Rice Pudding and Beck's Bolero, which is just like, you know, Jeff Beck, unbelievable songs, you know, real rock, great guitar in them. And then Jimmy Page is playing like this sort of stuff here. But
yeah,
yeah, it was interesting. Good gig. The next song is Black Country Woman, and the thing I love about this song is it sounds live in the studio, right? But there's a plane flying by the studio. It gets into
yeah.
the mic, and the engineer is probably saying, "Oh, we'll restart because the plane's after getting into the mic, Robert." And Robert's like, "Nah, leave it, leave it." I don't know if you ever heard that. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
hear
uh,
like little outtakes that they're doing, and they leave all those little bits in there. It's pretty cool, actually.
yeah, sorry, we,
At
we
the end of
didn't
one song,
mention
like
it.
he's coughing at the end of one song and all, and it's
That's
pretty
right.
cool.
It's at the end of Houses. Sorry, in my time of dying. At the end, Bonham is coughing his guts up, right? Because he's after
Yeah,
playing so hard and hasn't had a fag in 20 minutes. He's he's coughing his guts up. You can hear it through the mics on the kit,
Yeah.
yeah,
and Robert Plant goes, "My dying cough," you know,
yeah,
and then they just all kind of laughing, and then Jimmy Page says, "Do you want to come in and have a listen?" And then that was and it's
Yeah.
brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I
Um,
there's a
love the you that
outtakes.
just puts a human element on it, and I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. That's why I love those human elements in
Yeah,
songs. It's not
yeah,
all processed or whatever. It's live and it's captured.
yeah, yeah. Like God forbid if there was a mistake like that on an album nowadays,
oh, I
it just
know.
wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And on Black Country Woman, so very interestingly, no bass, acoustic guitar, and then Bonham comes in like about 2 minutes into the song, comes in and absolutely pounds it with a great drum take. But it sounds it's so weird. Like you go into that, listen to that song, and like 3/4 of the way through it, you can hear Robert Plant's voice, you can hear Bonham belting away, and you just can hear Jimmy Page a little bit on the acoustic guitar, and that's it. Like it's so weird, but they left it in there.
Yeah,
Like it's all
yeah,
good, you know. That one was actually from 1972, so like a Led Zeppelin 3 outtake, you know.
yeah.
yeah,
When they
Uh,
make that,
and then the last track on the double album is "Sick Again," which I know the lyrics in this get a lot of stick. Um,
yeah.
you know, at the
groupies
time.
and
Well, yeah, like the age of the groupies he's talking about is very, very young, like, you know, and maybe back in the day there was a blind eye turn to all that, but like certainly in the last the last 20 years, like it's not the case. But yeah, look, it's on the album. It's you know a point in time, and it is what it is. It's actually quite a good tune, but like just I think people criticize the lyrics on it now, and rightly so.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Well,
find as well the end of this song musically it feeds right into Custard Pie. It's almost like it's like the album loops around again.
Mm.
If you
Yeah,
listen
no,
to the chorus or they're playing, it goes straight into Custard Pie. Like
yeah,
yeah,
that's a fantastic catch. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, look, I had a top 10 greatest albums or top 10 perfect albums video out the other day. And I was saying, like, to get to my top 10 albums, like to be a perfect 10, it would have to be an album that when I get to the end, I want to go back to the start again. This album, now, like, I would go back to the start again, but I wouldn't be listening to the whole thing again because,
you need
you
another
know,
what? An hour
you
and a
know,
half, an hour.
yeah,
What was it? An
yeah.
hour and 40 minutes or something? The whole thing.
Yeah, like it's well, yeah, 80 minutes or whatever in total.
Yeah.
So yeah, you wouldn't be going back again. But yeah, no, an absolute classic. I'm gonna start off, guys, 10 out of 10 for me. This album is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I
Cool.
wouldn't change anything about it, even though we said there's some weak songs, I or weaker songs, but I still think as a
Yeah.
double album goes, it blows the Beatles' White Album out of the water, it blows The Wall out of the water. Smashing Pumpkins, Layla, any of those double albums blows them all out of the water, in my opinion.
For me, no, I think I think that overall it's a class album. It's really, really good. Some filler in there, like I said, a few songs on the second half of the album. And some of the songs feel a little bit long in place. My Time Dying, again, I just feel that song when I listen to it, it's just like drones on, you know. I wouldn't be saying that if were Moby Dick was, that long. But maybe that's just the drummer in me, maybe, But because of that, I feel the album just drags on a little bit too much. I give it an 8 out of 10. Certainly up there, like it's a really good album, but I don't think it tops Zep 4 or some of their. I'm a fan of their earlier stuff, so
Yeah. I think if you judge it in a couple of ways, like the double album, yeah, it's right up there as a double album. It's one of the stronger ones from all ages. It's fantastic. I'd give it a 9 or 10 out of 10 because I'm sitting here trying to think of a better double album that would make that would push it down into a 9 out of 10. But as an album itself, just compared to all other albums, I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10. It I'd be more along the lines of the 8 out of 10 myself. Also, if you were to judge it as well at its time, um, I think an awful lot was being thrown at Led Zeppelin. And I think they were making a statement, just like what with the new record label, having so much artistic control. They were just a juggernaut. They had so much control that other bands just would just die to have as even half the control they had. So they were getting it from their peers and from their critics. They've problems with Robert Plant and his vocals. Everything was he actually in the end of the year before that, John Paul Jones wanted to leave, and Peter Grant, their manager, told him to take a few months off. He was ready to quit. So there was an awful lot going on, and an awful lot up in the air. I think to take that product out at that time, I thought it was very well done, amazing. Like to pull it all together and come out with that product. That's a 10 out of 10, if you consider all the stuff that's going on around them.
yeah.
But in comparison to all albums going around, I there's better ones. I feel. But that's three ways to judge it. So I've given you three answers.
So
I've given you
what's
10
the
out of 10,
final?
9 out of 10, and 8 out of 10.
So it's we'll average that at 9 out of 10. Is that fair enough?
9 out of 10. Why give one when you can give three answers?
Absolutely, absolutely. I can see we're gonna have a lot of fun in the rest of the reviews, Marcus. You'll have to come up with a spreadsheet for
Yeah,
your scores.
I'll get a whiteboard.
Yeah. Cool. Well, look, let us know at home what you think of Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin. Put it in the comments below what you would give it out of 10. Let us know what you think. And today is the day to be listening to it. Actually, all week be listening to it, because on Monday, so today's Monday the 24th, it was released in the United States, I believe, but it wasn't released in the UK until the Friday the 28th. So you can listen to Physical Graffiti all week, but you might not want to listen to it twice in one day. It could burn you out.
Yeah.
As always, if you like the video, hit the like button, and if you could also subscribe, helps out the channel, and we greatly appreciate it. And we'll talk to you on the next one. Bye for now.
Cheers.